This is one of the most terrifying urban legends to exist, and if this video gets to 10,000 likes, I'm going there to investigate myself. Picture this, it's Halloween night. You and your friends drive down a dark, winding country road in Fairfax County, Virginia. The trees create a canopy overhead, blocking out the moonlight. Then you see it. A single-lane concrete tunnel beneath old railroad tracks. The locals call it the Bunnyman Bridge. Legend says, if you stand under the bridge at midnight on Halloween and call out Bunnyman 3 times, a figure in a blood-stained rabbit costume will emerge from the darkness, wielding an axe, ready to hang your body from the bridge for all to see. But here's where the story gets truly disturbing. Unlike most urban legends, this one started with something real, something that actually happened, and the truth might be even stranger than the fiction. So before we get to the truth, let's talk about the legend itself, because it's absolutely wild. The most popular version of the story goes like this. In 1904, there was an insane asylum in the woods near Clifton, Virginia. As the town grew, residents became uncomfortable having a facility for the criminally insane so close to their homes. They petitioned the state, and eventually officials agreed to close the asylum and transfer the inmates to Lordham Prison. On Halloween night, a bus carrying the inmates crashed on a dark country road. In the chaos, prisoners escaped into the surrounding woods. Police launched a massive manhunt and found most of them either dead or alive, but 2 inmates remained missing, Marcus Walster and Douglas J. Griffin. As the search continued, police made a gruesome discovery. Rabbit carcasses, just dozens of them, skinned, half-eaten, hanging from the trees throughout the forest. And the worst part, they killed the Easter Bunny. No, I'm just kidding. The remains were found near what's now called Bunnyman Bridge, the Colchester overpass near Fairfax Station. Eventually, the police found Marcus Walster's body hanging from the bridge itself with a note attached signed, "The Bunnyman." They assumed he was responsible for the rabbit killings and that Douglas Griffin had moved on, but they were wrong. The legend continues that the following Halloween, a group of teenagers went to the bridge, daring each other to test the story, and at the stroke of midnight, they were attacked by a bunny wielding an axe. The next morning, all of them were found hanging from the bridge, their bodies mutilated in the same fashion as the rabbits, throats slashed, gutted, just terrible, terrible stuff. The pattern allegedly repeated over the decades in the 40s and the 70s, and there were 3 more victims. Every time at midnight on Halloween, every time at Bunnyman Bridge. Now today, people say that if you visit Bunnyman Bridge on Halloween at midnight, the spirit of Douglas Griffin, the actual Bunnyman, will appear and add you to his collection of victims. And remember, if this gets 10,000 likes, I'm going there to find out if it's true. I'm terrified. Some versions add even more details, that Griffin murdered his own wife and children, that he wore rabbit pelts as clothing, that you can see all the rope marks on the bridge where the bodies hung, that his maniacal laughter echoes through the trees. It's the perfect horror story. It has tragedy, mystery, a specific location, and dates that you can verify, even the names of victims. It feels so real. There's just one problem. On October 22nd, 1970, the Washington Post reported Fairfax County Police said yesterday they are looking for a man who likes to wear a white bunny rabbit costume and throw hatchets through car windows. And I'm not bullshit. This is real. Here's the article. I don't know, maybe the dude was just the first. Even the newspapers seemed to know how absurd and crazy this sounded, but it was real. And here's what happened. On October 18th, 1970, Air Force Academy cadet Robert Bennett, a first-year cadet, was visiting his uncle in Burke, Virginia. He had just attended an Air Force Navy football game with his fiancée. Around midnight, they were sitting in Bennett's car on the 5400 block of Guinea Road. Not at Bunnyman Bridge, but in Burke, about a mile away from the now famous bridge. The car was parked in a field across the street from Bennett's uncle's house. They had the motor running, just talking, probably saying their good nights, giving a little smooch for the evening. Then they noticed something. Moving outside of the rear window, moments later, a figure came through the bushes nearby. According to Bennett, it was a man dressed in a white suit with long bunny ears. The figure was shouting, "You're on my private property and I have your tag number." And so Bennett was like, oh crap, we're trespassing, this dude's going to get us in trouble. But before Bennett could react, the man threw a wooden handled hatchet directly at the car and it crashed through the right front passenger window glass, shattering everywhere. The hatchet landed on the floorboard. And then this detail is absolutely wild. The news report that the rabbit skipped off into the night. Not ran, not walked, but he hopped like a little bunny. Bennett and his fiancée weren't injured, but they were terrified. They had the hatchet, they had the shattered window, and they immediately reported it to the police. Bennett insisted this man was wearing a white suit with long bunny ears, but his fiancée disagreed. She said he wasn't wearing bunny ears at all, but something like a white crown, like a pointed hood, white crown, something like that. But either way, they're both weird. They both saw his face clearly, but they couldn't determine his race in the darkness. Now, police took the hatchet as evidence and opened an investigation, but with no other clues, they eventually returned the hatchet to Bennett and the case went cold. Like, why did you give back evidence? This man was traumatized from a bunny throwing a hatchet through his car, and the police just said, okay, well, here you go, you can have it back, kid. So that incident in itself is wild. And you know, it's easy for Bennett and the fiance to have different opinions on what happened because fear and adrenaline kicks in. It was dark, they had just had a hatchet thrown through their window, so of course the stories aren't going to line up 100% because fear does that to you. But here's the second incident. On October 29th, 1970, just 11 days later, the Bunny Man appeared again. Same area around Guinea Road, about a block from the first incident. Same bizarre costume, and this time the witness was Paul Phillips, a private security guard working for a construction company. He was patrolling Kings Park West, a new housing development, when he spotted someone on the porch of an unfinished, unoccupied house. Phillips approached the dude like, what are you doing here? And what he saw was creepy. He described a man that was wearing a gray, black and white bunny costume. The man was about 20 years old, 5'8", and around 175 pounds. And this time, he was holding a long-handled axe. I mean, this bunny just loves axes for some reason. Phillips later told the investigators, I started talking to him, and that's when he started chopping. The Bunny Man began hacking at the porch post with the axe, leaving deep gashes in the woods. While he was chopping, he yelled at Phillips, all you people are trespassing around here. You're trespassing, and if you come any closer, I'll chop your head off. That's my best Southern bunny impression. I don't know. Phillips understandably freaked the out and ran back to his car to get his handgun because he was going to pew-pew the Easter Bunny. But by the time he returned, the Bunny Man had vanished off into the woods, once again, hopping away. This incident occurred on October 29th, just 2 days before Halloween. The police opened another investigation this time, led by Officer J.S. Brown, and later turned over to W.L. Johnson of the Criminal Investigation Bureau. The police tried everything. They had 2 credible reports, 2 witnesses, physical evidence, the damaged porch post, and the hatchet. They searched for this man in his late teens, early 20s, known to wear a bunny costume, and they followed up on dozens of leads. But here's the thing. They found absolutely nothing. But, you know, this caused mass hysteria in this town right before Halloween. One of these news stories hit the newspapers and all hell broke loose. Within 2 weeks, Fairfax County Police received more than 50 reports of Bunny Man sightings. The reports spread all the way from Fairfax County to Washington, D.C., Maryland, and Prince George's County. And at this time, it was right before Halloween. You know, it's causing a lot of fear. Parents are getting worried. They're not sending their kids to school. They're not going out for Halloween. Everybody's just in full freak out mode, staying at home, worried that this big giant bunny man is going to come chop you up. On November 6, 1970, the Washington Post reported that police received numerous calls from people claiming to have seen the Bunny Man, a man dressed as a rabbit, in various sections of northeast or southeast Washington. 3 children in Seat Pleasant, Maryland told their mothers that they saw this man on the streets with the bunny rabbit suit on with a hatchet. It was the 3rd reported sighting in that area within 2 weeks. Some reports were genuinely frightening. Others were obvious pranks or copycat incidences. One widely reported story claimed that the Bunny Man had eaten someone's runaway cat, though this was never verified. The police couldn't confirm any of these secondary sightings, and it became impossible to separate the genuine encounters from the mass hysteria, pranks, and people jumping on the bandwagon just looking for attention. By spring of 1971, the sightings had stopped, the case files were closed, and the final police report conducted. After a very extensive investigation into this and all other cases in the same nature, it is still unsubstantiated as to whether or not there really is a white rabbit bunny man freak going around with a hatchet. He didn't really say the last part, it ended at white rabbit. But to this day, more than 50 years later, no one knows who the Bunny Man was. If he was still in his early 20s in 1970, he could still be alive today in his mid-70s, but no one's ever come forward. No one was ever arrested, and his identity remains a complete mystery. It's the perfect horror story. It has tragedy, mystery, a specific location, and dates that you can verify, even the names of victims. It feels so real. There's just one problem. Almost none of it is true. The person who finally unraveled the true story of the Bunnyman is Brian A. Conley, a historian, archivist, I don't know how to say that, for the Fairfax County Public Library. Conley first heard the Bunnyman legend as a teenager in the 1970s. Like many kids in Northern Virginia, it was the kind of story you'd tell around a campfire when you wanted to scare someone, and a bunch of dumb teens did it. I would have done it in high school. But when he started working at the Fairfax County Public Library as an information specialist in the Virginia room, the legend followed him. People would come in constantly asking about the Bunnyman. Did it really happen? Where did it come from? Were there really murders? And for years, Conley had to tell them, we don't know. Giving that answer over and over started to bother him. As a historian and working at the library, he had access to resources most people didn't. So around 1992, after years of being asked the same question, he decided to find out the truth once and for all. What followed was nearly 8 years of meticulous research. Conley didn't just casually look into it, he conducted an exhaustive investigation that would make any detective proud. He searched through Fairfax County police records from 1872 to 1973, over 550 individual murder reports, court records looking for anyone named Griffin or Walster, asylum records, newspaper archives, the Maryland Folklore Archive. His goal was simple: find out if there was any historical evidence for the murders, the asylum, the bus crash, any of it. And what he discovered changed everything. In 2002, Conley published his findings in a paper titled The Bunnyman Unmasked. It's considered the definitive research on the legend, and here's what he found. There was never an insane asylum in or near Clifton, Virginia. The Lorton Reformatory mentioned in the legend wasn't built until 1910, 6 years after the supposed 1904 bus crash. There's no court records for anyone named Douglas Griffin or Marcus Walster in Fairfax County. The old Clifton Library, where some versions claim evidence exists, it never existed. There's no murder reports matching the legend's description, not in 1904, not in 1940s, and not in the 70s. So the entire 1904 legend, the asylum, bus crash, escaped convicts, murders, it's all fiction. But it's a very well-crafted urban legend that's rooted in a lot of different things. But nonetheless, it's fake. But here's where it gets interesting. Conley did find something real. 2 documented incidences that clearly inspired the legend, and they're the creepiest part about this story. So how did this transform into the elaborate legend that we know today? The answer lies in how urban legends evolve and how we can trace this one almost year by year. 1973, Patricia Johnson's research. Just 3 years after the incidents, a University of Maryland student named Patricia Johnson wrote a research paper for her folklore class called The Bunnyman. She interviewed 33 students from Prince George's County, Maryland, ages 15 to 18, about what exactly they had heard. Johnson documented exactly 54 different versions of the story. Think about that. Just 3 years after the real incidents, the story had already mutated into 54 distinct variations. Her analysis broke down like this. 14 different geographic locations were mentioned. 18 versions involved the Bunnyman chasing people with a hatchet or an axe. 14 told of attacks on cars. 9 claimed he attacked couples parked in cars. 5 accused him of vandalism, but only 3 mentioned murder. So even by 1973, the vast majority of versions were still relatively close to the truth. Vandalism, threats, attacking cars, and of course, a freak wearing a Bunnyman outfit. The murders hadn't fully taken over the narrative yet, but they were starting to appear, and that's what is the significant part. 1980, the bridge connection. By the 1980s, something crucial happened. The story became permanently attached to the Colchester overpass, now known as Bunnyman Bridge. This is fascinating because the bridge has nothing to do with the actual incidents that happened. Those happened on Guinea Road in Burke, about a mile away. But the Colchester overpass had one main thing going for it. It was creepy. It was absolutely terrifying. This single lane road with a bridge in the middle of the woods. It's just a good place for an urban legend. It was built in 1906, giving it that old spooky atmosphere. It was a single lane tunnel under the railroad tracks, which is already creepy enough. It was isolated, surrounded by the woods. and it was already a popular teenage hangout spot in Lover's Lane. It was the perfect setting for the ghost story, so as teenagers told and retold the tale, they naturally gravitated towards the scariest location they knew, the bridge, and it became an anchor point for the legend. This is a common phenomenon in folklore. Stories attach themselves to places that feel right, regardless of the accuracy about them. In 1999, the internet changed everything. The legend might have stayed a local Virginia ghost story if it wasn't for the internet. In 1990, a user named Timothy J. Forbes posted what became the most widely circulated version of the Bunnyman story to a website called Castle of Spirits. This version had everything: the specific names with Douglas Griffin and Marcus Walster, specific dates, specific locations, the asylum in Clifton, the Lorton prison, the specific murders, teenagers in 1904 and more in the 40s, 3 more in the 70s, and a challenge to readers to verify the facts at the old Clifton Library. This post was incredibly detailed. It read like historical fact, and it spread like wildfire across the early internet, but it was just a hoax. Brian Conley called it a hell of a good piece of creative writing, because that's exactly what it is: fiction. That's so well crafted that it fooled thousands of people into believing it was real. The real genius of Forbes' version is that it included just enough checkable details to seem legit, while making those details absolutely impossible to actually verify. The old Clifton Library never existed, so no one could disprove it by checking there. The names Griffin and Walster don't appear in any records, but most people wouldn't know how to search court records anyway. The legend got even more mainstream exposure when the Fox Family show Scariest Places on Earth featured a segment called Terror on Bunnyman's Bridge in 2001. This brought the legend to a national audience and further cemented Bunnyman Bridge as a must-visit location for paranormal enthusiasts and legend trippers. Now, in 2026, the legend is even more popular than ever. The Colchester Overpass is even labeled Bunnyman Bridge on Google Maps. The town of Clifton has fully embraced it. There's Bunnyman merch, there's a Bunnyman brewery, Halloween attractions, everything. Starting in 2003, local authorities began controlling access to the area during Halloween because of the crowds. In 2011, during a 14-hour Halloween traffic checkpoint, over 200 people were turned away, some from as far as Pennsylvania and the Maryland border. This legend has inspired rock operas, horror films, art, and even a quilt that its creator said was too disturbing to sleep under. Some believe the legend is partially inspired by the bunny suit in the 2001 film Donnie Darko, though director Richard Kelly has never confirmed this. So why did this particular legend become so powerful? Why has it lasted for over 50 years when most urban legends fade away? There are several psychological and sociological factors at play. It's based on real events. Unlike pure fictional legends, the Bunnyman has documented foundation. Those 1970 incidents really happened. There were real newspaper articles. The Washington Post put out something about it. There were real police investigations. A real hatchet was thrown through the car window. And this little bit of truth gives the legend credibility that pure fiction lacks. When someone says it's just a story, you can point to the articles from 1970 and say, look at this. The imagery is unforgettable. A man in a bunny suit wielding an axe is just such a bizarre, disturbing image that it sticks in your mind. It's the focal point of the innocent bunny with the violent nature of an axe-wielding criminal that makes it so effective. As Brian Conley put it, a creepy guy on Halloween, dressed oddly, throwing hatchets at people. It's just too bizarre to possibly be true, but it is. The specific details create false verification. The legend includes names, dates, locations, things you feel like you could verify, but this creates what researchers call false verification. It feels more real because it's specific, even though those specifics are made up. Many versions of the legend end with a challenge. Go to the bridge at midnight on Halloween, say Bunnyman 3 times, and see what happens. This transforms the legends from a story you hear into an experience you can have. It's interactive folklore, and that makes it engaging and memorable. It also addresses suburban anxieties. Remember that the real 1970 incident occurred during a period of mass suburban development in Fairfax County. After World War II, the area transformed from rural farmland to sprawling suburbs. The Bunnyman's repeated accusations, "You're on my property, you're trespassing, all of you people are trespassing around here," suggests that someone disturbed by development, by newcomers, and by change did this. It's speculated that the real Bunnyman might have been a local man who didn't like that his small little town was rapidly developing and he was trying to get people to leave. The legend taps into anxieties about progress, change, and the loss of a small town life, and whether we're really safe in these new big fancy neighborhoods that look so perfect on the surface. It also functions as a teenage rite of passage. For generations of Northern Virginia teenagers, visiting Bunnyman Bridge has been a rite of passage. It's a way to prove your bravery, to bond with friends, to have an adventure. The legend serves as a social function and gives young people a shared experience and a piece of local identity. But here's what we know for certain about the real Bunnyman. He appeared twice in October 1970. He wore some kind of white costume that looked like a bunny suit. He was around 20 years old, 5'8", 175 pounds. He clearly didn't want people trespassing, and he was an advocate for property rights, and he was armed with a hatchet or an axe. But the weirdest detail is he was never caught, never identified, and that raises fascinating questions that remain unanswered. You know, if the Bunnyman was in his early 20s in 1970, he'd be around 76, 77 years old today, and he could still be alive. He might be living in Virginia right now. He might be on Guinea Road. He might have kids and grandkids who also hop around in little bunny outfits, or have no idea that their father or grandfather once terrorized people being a psycho. Or he could have died decades ago taking the secrets to the grave. But why a bunny suit? That's the part that I just can't understand. It was late October. Halloween was approaching. So maybe it was just convenient. Maybe he was the local Easter bunny at his church. Maybe he already had the costume. But it's such an unusual choice that there had to be something significant to it. Was he making a statement? Was it random? Or did this dude just really love rabbits? Both occurrences involved accusations of trespassing. In the first incident, Bennett was parked on private property. In the second, Phillips was guarding a new housing development. Was the Bunnyman the property owner angry about development? Was he a local resident who lost land to suburban sprawl? Or was he just someone with mental health issues who fixated on the concept of trespassing? And there's one final incident that we didn't talk about. Allegedly it happened. Investigator W.L. Johnson received a phone call from someone identifying himself as the Axeman, who complained about tree stumps and brush being dumped on his property. Police set up a stakeout, but the caller never showed. If it was the same person, it suggests that someone was actually just genuinely disturbed by all the property development. Sightings ended by spring of 1971. Did he move away? Did he get scared by the police attention? Did he die? Did he simply decide he made his point? Did he finally marry the Easter Bunny? We'll probably never know. The legend of Bunnyman is a perfect case study in how urban legends are born and evolve. It started with real events, strange and unexplained, but ultimately mundane acts of vandalism and threats. Within 3 years, it had 54 different versions, and by the 1980s, it included murders. By 1999, it had this elaborate backstory about asylums and bus crashes and escaped convicts hanging bunnies in the woods. Each generation added new details, made it scarier, moved it to a more atmospheric location. The internet supercharged it, and now it's spread, and it's a permanent part of Virginia folklore, even showing up on Google Maps and in countless YouTube videos, including this one. Brian Conley spent 8 years researching the legend, sifting through over 500 murders, examining court records and newspaper archives, and tracking down police reports. His work definitely proves that the murders, the asylum, all of it's fiction, but it doesn't make the real story less interesting. If anything, it makes it more fascinating, because somewhere out there, assuming he's still alive, is a man in his 70s who once put on a bunny suit, grabbed a hatchet, and terrorized people in Virginia, and he created one of America's most enduring urban legends and never got caught. Bunnyman Bridge still stands. People visit it, especially on Halloween. They still dare each other to say Bunnyman 3 times at midnight. They still feel that thrill of fear when they stand in that dark tunnel under the railroad. And remember, if this video hits 10,000 likes, we're going. We're going to deep dive into Bunnyman Bridge like nobody else has done before, and we're going to see if we can figure it out. But maybe that's the real power of urban legends. Not whether they're true or false, but how they make us feel. The Bunnyman legend transforms an ordinary area into a place of mystery and danger, and it reminds us that even in the most mundane, boring settings, something weird can happen, something that defies explanation. So the next time you're driving through Fairfax County, Virginia, and you see a single-lane tunnel under the railroad tracks, remember, something weird did happen out there, just not what you've been told. Thanks for watching. If you made it to the end, like this video, subscribe, turn on notifications, and comment down below what you want me to talk about next. I know this is a little bit different from my normal videos, but this is just a really creepy, weird urban legend that has fascinated me for a while. So remember, 10,000 likes, we're going. We're going to the bridge. I'm gonna wear a bunny outfit and I'm gonna summon the bunny man. Maybe we'll see him. Maybe he'll hop off in the woods. Maybe he'll bring me some Easter eggs. I don't know, but we're gonna find out. But until next time, stay spooky.